As you mentioned earlier, you have attracted some fairly severe critics.
Yes.
So I need you to respond to one of them, and I've picked one that perhaps one of your harshest, Diane Ravitz, research professor at NYU, and she argued that your tenure in Washington, D.C. was, she leveled charges of, quote, cheating, teaching to bad tests, institutionalized fraud, dumbing down of tests, and a narrowed curriculum. How do you respond to critics like that and to Diane specifically?
Yeah. So I would say that, I mean, I could take those apart one by one, but let me just take one. So this belief that there was a narrowing of the curriculum. Actually, it was exactly the opposite. Going through the school closure process where we closed 23 schools, and lots of people like Dan and Ravi, they don't want to close any schools. They think that closing schools is just terrible because, you know, what about the role that that school plays in the community? I mean, these schools were failing schools, where 10% of the kids in that school were on grade level. I think if you don't shut that down, I think it's almost criminal. But people like her want to, you know, keep those schools open. When we closed the 23 schools in DC, what it allowed us to do was take our same budget and spread it over fewer schools, which meant that all of a sudden, there were a whole lot more resources, because we were no longer spending money to heat and light and air condition half-empty buildings. So through that school closure process, we were able to ensure that every single school in the District of Columbia had an art teacher, a music teacher, a PE teacher, a librarian, a nurse, and a guidance counselor or social worker for the first time in the history of the city. So it was not a narrowing of the curriculum. It was actually a broadening of the curriculum, because before we did that, whether or not a school had a music teacher depended on whether you were in the part of town where the parents could hold an auction that would then allow us to buy a music teacher, versus if you were on the other side of town where those kinds of resources were not there. We equalized the resources and the exposure that all children had to a broad-based curriculum. Take the cheating thing for another thing. There were allegations that there was cheating on tests going on in the district. And I actually acknowledge the fact that my immediate response was not a good one, because I sort of took it as a personal affront. Like, are you saying that our kids actually can't learn at high levels? But that was actually the wrong thing to do. What I should have done, and later sort of corrected myself to do, was say, if there's any questions, then we should have a full investigation and whatnot. There have now been 5 investigations into that allegation of cheating in DC. 3 by external entities, 1 by the Office of the Inspector General of the City of DC, and 1 federal investigation by the US Department of Education in conjunction with the Justice Department. All 5 of them found exactly the same thing, which was that there was no widespread cheating in the district and that there were problems in one particular school. Now, despite the fact that that is the case, there are still people who want to sort of continue that narrative, and I don't think there's a whole lot that we can do about it.